Hey everyone. Wow. It's a bit of an echo. Hang on. There we go. All right. It's already on the bingo card. Something's screwing up right at the beginning. Anyways, Lines on the Page, episode 34, and today we are drawing snake eyes. Super duper happy about doing this. And we are doing traditional today, so we are going back to doing stuff with pen and paper. And as you can obviously tell, I did kind of grid off some stuff earlier, and that is just because there's a little bit of context as to why I started to grid some stuff out. But before I can get to that, I'm going to do some quick housekeeping stuff. And Haven Comics, located 1871 Slaughter Road in Madison, Alabama. And if you happen to like the show and any other show that we do, please remember to like and subscribe. Every single time that you happen to like something or share it or comment on or whatever, that basically kind of pushes the algorithm to actually share this stuff out. So there is a point to it. Do it. And if you happen to wonder where you can find me on social media, you can follow me through my handle at tpriceartworks. And you can find me on every major area on social media, and even the newest one, Threads. And I'm also have a Patreon as well. And it looks like we already have someone already in the chat. Justin Butler, what's up? Hope you're doing well. And I do have a question for you. Did you commission Bryce to do that Lilith from Diablo 4? If so, I saw him post them, just like, that's got to be Justin that commissioned him to do that. If it wasn't, I'd be surprised. But yeah, so today we're doing Snake Eyes, and basically this is going to be used as a print in which I will be releasing within the next month, if not this month, but definitely for August. And we're doing this traditional, and I definitely want to thank Josh Olive for basically claiming this piece before I even started on it. So this will more likely, if not be hanging in Haven after it's done, then the original will probably be at his place. And it was you. All right. So, funny story. I was originally going to go there just to go there and just hang out with Tim and Bryce and show some of the stuff I've been working on the side. And the schedule just was not working in my favor. And just because I've got to finish inking these pages. And so Tim had messaged me asking if there's any way possible I could come in. So I'm wondering if someone may have dropped out. And I told him just like, I want to, but I can't. And he was totally understanding about that. So I think we're going to be doing something later on. But going back to this, so this print, like I said, is going to be released. Of course, it'll be colored digitally, but it'll be released, if not at the end of this month, then definitely at the beginning of next month. And the weird part is that as far as just like the main Joes, I've never personally drawn Snake Eyes a lot, so this is going to be really interesting, especially since I happen to going to be using this partly just to get some idea in terms of how I want to go about it. And what I do with every print is I like to do thumbnails. And by thumbnails is basically just a small sketch, kind of get an idea. And I wanted to do a bit of a homage of sorts. And I was thinking about Alex Toth, and the picture I was finding was cool, but I want to hold that off for something else to do as a tribute. And then I was thinking about someone else completely, and thought about Jean-Paul Leon. because he recently passed away not that long ago, and I say not that long ago; it's been a couple of years, but uh, he did a cover for Batman Catwoman. It was the special number 1, and it's basically Catwoman is kind of like hanging off in the distance, and all these, it looks like a Gotham PD SWAT team is like super far back and underneath, sort of thing. And so that's basically kind of the idea, and using the same kind of idea is to, put Snake Eyes here, have the Cobra flag in the background, and then of course some of the soldiers, maybe some Vipers, we'll have them back down here. And it's basically just doing um, Snake Eyes what he does best, which is he is a ninja. Um, I mean, yeah, sure, he is, technically also a commando character, but for all intents and purposes, he was trained as a ninja. That's his skill set. So it makes sense to make him do something very ninja-like. Um, there were a couple of other ideas I had on another piece of paper. I just wasn't feeling them, so I was thinking about doing tribute stuff. Um, and that's where the idea of looking at some kind of classic-ish looking covers. So figured let's do that. So if you happen to hear me click and go back and forth a lot, that's basically it. So what I've done is that I've gridded off paper because I was trying to figure out, I guess, how far apart do I want the size of the wall for him to basically kind of be hiding up in, and of course with the rest of that, and kind of going back and forth between my reference of using that Jean-Paul Leon cover and yeah. So Snake is going to be right here, and then I'm going to have the Cobra flag kind of hanging off in the background, and of course you've got the soldiers and all the different soldier types I could possibly think about squeezing in down here. And of course, it's going to be in black and white. What we're doing today, it'll be digitally colored, so I'll worry about all of that stuff later. So all of that aside, I'll move over to my reference real quick so I can get this down. So we're going to have um, Snake's head right here. And I want to have them slightly looking down. So chest area is going to be right here. Need down the abs. And then have leg up. Kneecap. Actually, will be more right here. And just quickly block in that. I'll shape that out a bit more later. And then other leg is behind. this just a little bit. All right, so shoulders are going to be right here. And of course, this arm is going to be up a bit behind his head. And hand's going to be back here. And okay, so from the reference that I'm looking at, uh, the arm, the arm and the hand is actually a bit when you use even. I'm looking at it and I'm going to have to mirror what I'm doing with my hands. So in this particular reference that I'm looking at, the hand is actually a bit out like this. I'm going to do it just a little bit different and have them actually holding on to something like a railing or a pipe. Um, we'll have that over here. All right. I guess it just really depends on, what kind of version of Snake Eyes that we're going with. And of course, I'm also going to be looking at this figurine as well, but I'm going to keep the classic, not the goggles, but the, I guess, slats. Almost kind of looks like uh, it's a helmet, obviously. I'm just trying to remember the medieval terminology of the visor. Because it comes from like a specific era during the Middle Ages. But uh, anyways, that kind of uh, shape for the mask and visor is what I'm going to be doing with that. But I do like the tactical gear that is on this figurine. Which, by the way, if you want to buy this particular thing, you definitely can at Haven Comics. And we also have the Snake Eyes and Timberwolf statue. Uh, and I think it's a sideshow gallery statue. Josh can probably fill you in on that much better than I can, but it is pretty sweet. But I do want to um, wonder if I do want to put a kind of a bandana thing right here because I've seen that on some of the stuff. Kind of wondering if I want to do that or not. Uh, do-do-do-do-do. Think I am going to not do that. So the reason that I'm also kind of doing it as a homage is it wasn't until I think maybe last 2 years that I've recently started to look into and study some of the stuff that Jean-Paul Leon has done, which if you're into uh, a espionage noir type comic, he did one called The Winter's Men. And I can't remember if that was through Dark Horse or if it was through Image. Um, I don't remember, but I do remember what it's called. It is called The Winter's Men. It's definitely enjoyable, not for little kids. Um, and I know that he's done some DC covers. Obviously, the one that I'm attributing is a Batman Catwoman special, but he's also done a couple of other Batman covers that I know of. And let's see, I know he's done one of it's either the Shadow or the Spirit. I think it's the Spirit. It's there. Then we're going to so on top of having his sword on his back, we're going to have probably a small sling for the Uzi as well. So I'm gonna get the sword in. Lower the pommel just a bit. All right, so got this part right here and belt, which there's also going to be probably have the handgun in the holster on his leg. I'm also thinking whether or not if I want to give him sweet body armor, and I think I will. Let's see. Right. Pistol is right there. And we want to have bigger magazines right here for the Uzi. Just glad that we're not going full 90s with pouches on pouches. So so that is there. And then okay, I think that's what I'll bag. I have a question. So I want to do Uzi or do I want to do an MP5? Bigger question I've got for myself. Oy. All right. There. Eight. Folder pad while I'm thinking about it. Or sorry, elbow pad. Shoulder pads on the opposite part of the body. All right. Or the arm, I should say. Right. So I'm gonna quickly freehand in the logo of his clan. It's line, bar, line. So GI Joe was actually kind of an interesting thing in my household. Uh, Part of it was um, I probably had spent more time uh, watching and absorbing Transformers than I did GI Joe, and of course, it was technically off the air unless you just happened to hit a rerun, or if you were like me, you rented the VHS of either the episodes or the movie. And I, you know, like I said, Transformers definitely latched on um, a lot, and pretty sure I wore those tapes out, but it was just loads of fun. And with GI Joe, I think it was just whichever episodes that I could watch. There weren't really a lot of GI Joe VHS tapes at the video rental places that I've gone to. So either it was like the local place, like Paradise Videos or Video King, or even the Kroger's grocery store. And for people who are just like, what? Yes, Kroger's actually had a video rental area, uh, which place where it is right now, or would have been, I should say, if you had decided to step foot inside the Decatur Kroger's. It's actually where the pharmacy is right now. Uh, so yeah, I didn't get to watch the GI Joe movie until I was probably in fifth grade, versus watching the Transformers movie when I was probably about I don't know 5, 6 years old. Uh, and of course, the older I got, the more I learned a bit more about the history behind the making of the GI Joe movie, which a lot of it was stuff that they learned that didn't work with the Transformers movie. Um, and of course, the main purposes of the animated films was to uh, start a whole new line of toys, because the toys in the cartoons they worked hand in hand. Um, That was just the sole purpose. And when you look at the cast of the Transformers movie, they were hiring some major A-listers in Hollywood to do this animated movie. So they got Judd Nelson, who was, the hothead, angsty guy, which he played the rebel in Breakfast Club. They got Robert Culp, who was in the TV series of The Untouchables. Leonard Nimoy, the guy who originally played Spock. And of course, they also got Orson Welles, and that was actually his last performance because the guy was like 300 something pounds and he had a lot of medical complications. Um, and then, of course, they also had um, the original voice actors for the TV show, which were also some of the same voice actors for G.I. Joe. And whenever they would uh, do any of um, the voice acting stuff. Of course, this is back in the day when before digital recording, so it was all done with reel-to-reel tape. Now, if messed anything up, you could edit it to where you would have to like stop the tape, get out a scalpel or a straight edge razor. You would have to like find that particular spot, cut it off, and then cut X amount to where it's supposed to be the part that hasn't been recorded yet, and get a piece of tape to tape it together, and then, or kind of redundant taping the tape together, but that was basically how it was done. And this is interesting because I was just talking about this earlier with Josh and Aaron. So, and there was actually a scene. So the guy who actually voices Cobra Commander also voices Starscream. And there was a moment in one of the episodes in the first generation of Transformer stuff, and forgot the actor's name who voices Starscream, but he got a little bit too into the stuff, and so he, doing a lot of hand movements and stuff like that. And there was a moment where he like quickly got up from his seat, like he was about to declare something or whatever. It was just this giant rip in the back of his pants, and everyone was just bust out laughing, and they could not stop laughing for about 15 minutes. So there was about 15 minutes worth of tape that just went bye bye uh, because of that. And the interesting part is that the guy who actually talked about that was voice actor who voiced Bumblebee. So it was kind of interesting to have him be the, I guess, slight historian of all that going on. And so, anyways, for those of you who have seen the Transformers animated movie, uh, you obviously know that's when a particular scene happens. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for you. Optimus Prime dies. And that was a big thing, which the companies, they weren't really thinking about it. And they were just like, well, and other Autobot characters died as well. But it was just we're, moving these toys out to bring the new stack of toys in. Made sense. Apparently, that traumatized a lot of kids. And so you have parents, sending letters to Hasbro, and apparently some kid was so traumatized that he would not uh, leave his house. But you know, Hasbro just wasn't really thinking about all that sort of stuff when they decided to make that decision, because they were just like, well, who's going to replace Optimus? Well, let's bring in this new character, Hot Rod, and then he will become Rodimus Prime. It makes sense. Not how many kids can we scar in 1986? Let me count thy ways. So, um, basically, what ended up happening. So when the GI Joe animated movie was coming in, um, one of the decisions that they had to make was, we'll still have the characters shooting each other and blowing up vehicles and all that sort of stuff, but no one can really die. Uh, so when it got to the point where Duke gets fatally injured, um, he doesn't die. So they just said that he's in critical condition, and but he's stable, and so of course he does end up living. So, but yeah, there was that, and I believe some of the early episodes. And if I'm totally wrong, Josh, if you happen to be watching this, please correct me. But if I remember correctly, I want to say that there was an episode or two where they actually were firing off like actual rounds, and then they had to change it to where it was like energy based weapons. So you had uh, one side shooting off like red lasers and the other side shooting off blue lasers. So, hey, Tots. All right, get some kill. Okay, that's not technically true. Uh, Megatron, Exxon, Optimus. Um, as far as just you got to do it. He tries, doesn't work out of the way. But at the same time, Optimus is hardwired to save people, regardless of what life form that they are. So you can look at it in so many different ways. But regardless, it's not Ultra Magnus that becomes the leader. It is Hot Rod. But yeah, uh, but I will say this though, and I'm kind of surprised. So with the Transformers film, you had a killer soundtrack. You know, top people as far as just 80 metal bands, and of course out of the blue you got Weird Al doing a song uh, called "Dare to Be Stupid." Um, and gosh, I forgot which actor from the Monty Python group that was the leader of the Junkticons. I think that's how you pronounce them. Anyways, he was in it, and but despite his situation of not becoming the next leader of the Autobots, definitely my favorite character from the Gen 2 is Ultra Magnus. As far as the Gen 1 characters, Jazz will always be my favorite. Which I'm pretty sure the same guy who voiced Jazz is also the same person that voices Roadblock. Um, which something that Josh and I were talking about whenever we were watching Transformers today during the store hours is that it's kind of hard to you know watch and or listen, and it's just like, well, now I can't think that it's yeah, I can't think that it's Megatron. It's Destro. I can't think that it's Starscream as Cobra Commander. So yeah, which I totally get that. It is a bit jarring. Trying to think about how long I want this sling to be. But yeah, so it's a bit surprising um, that the Transformers movie had a whole soundtrack for it, but didn't have that with the GI Joe movie. But you did have um, a different intro music to the beginning of the movie, and you can also tell that the budget of the animation also went up drastically because they were doing some stuff in that movie with the action sequences. We've got I can't remember the that female assassin chick from Cobra Law, but when she's infiltrating um, that building uh, to get the Serpentor, uh, that was just a crazy shot altogether because no way possible they could have ever pulled that off in the actual TV show with the budget that they were working with, and at the same time Um, you've also got the same situation and where they're in well, it's when the God, what are they called? The Renegades. When uh, Don Johnson's character and the other guys with Beachhead and Sergeant Slaughter, when they come in to rescue the Joes, there's a scene with the helicopter, and it's, you know, they get hit and they're crashing, and same situation, like the frame rate and all that sort of stuff. It was fantastic. Never seen anything like that in the GI Joe cartoon, and it's also parts in the GI Joe cartoon and even the Transformers cartoon where they've reused the same animation cells for certain parts. Double check some stuff. It's working the way that I'm thinking that. So, all right. See if I can clean up some of these lines and we start getting into some details. there. All right. So now we have that part basically detailed out, and we're gonna work on this just a bit. Now, something that I'm just now thinking about with it's a conversation slash situation that happened many years ago regarding uh, just the idea and forethought of drawing and doing prints. Um, I actually didn't do prints until the beginning of last year. And part of that was just because um, I got really burnt out on the idea. Well, there was just a lot of burnout, but I also got really burnt out on the idea that, oh, well, every little thing that has to be drawn has to be, this perfect thing, and you can't draw for fun. Um, excuse me. And a little bit of a, I guess, a slight exaggeration, but there is truth to that, basically. And didn't really like the idea of the fact of, my just doing something for fun in a sketchbook and to draw it 5 different times, uh, on a separate sheet of paper and all this sort of stuff, or that the one thing that I am just sketching just for fun had to be this perfect thing. And this was from sitting through a whole drawing class because just part about that just really did not make any sense whatsoever. And of course, seeing uh, people that I follow just pumping out prints, you know, 2 or 3 a month every year. Um, it really just some of them were fantastic. Some of them were not fantastic. Uh, but um, and then trying to put something together and try to make a print out of it. It was definitely a mental game, and I lost every time. Um, so it wasn't until last year that I basically just decided to put out some prints, really commit to whatever it is that I'm doing and try to make it work. And so far, I mean, 2 of them have been uh, some of my best-selling prints, the Mr. Freeze and the Sandman. And just wasn't expecting that whatsoever. But like a lot of stuff with you know, art and comics, it really is a mental game, as much as it is a physical one. Because there's only so many hours in a day that you can uh, put a specific amount of work in. If that makes sense. It's pretty obvious. Anyone can agree to that. While at the same time, uh, you can't take care of this, then there's no way possible you'll be able to take care of this. Think about uh, Bink Roman Stump Grab. Hey, how's it going? Doing quite well. Hope you're doing well. Trying to think of a slightly ergonomic uh, sole for this Snake Eyes piece. Just kind of tapping into the whole ninja thing. Um, while also kind of making it a bit of a boot. Drawing sheet's always a nightmare. Oh, it's definitely Rob Liefeld's nightmare. That's for sure. So, something that I've learned as far as just drawing when it comes to feet and hands is just constantly practice at it. Yeah, it is a bit of a burn. Um, I mean, the guy's been doing it for about 30 something years, and yeah, he'll never be let down. Um, like I get the fact that there are people that are out there that still like Liefeld stuff, regardless of what he puts out. But objectively, when you put him against everyone else from the OG Image era, so that's him, Life. Sorry, so that's Liefeld, McFarlane, Lee, Silvestri, William. Well, even though at the time Scott Williams was an inker, but he's actually been doing a lot of drawing stuff now by himself. But and of course, Wolves Pataccio. But if you put them all together, Liefeld is at the very bottom when you look at it. And as weird as it sounds, Silvestri and Lee are the only two out of that group that are still continuously pumping out, you know, the great stuff still to this day. Even though Lee doesn't do as much of it compared to Silvestri, which I guess it also kind of depends on whatever projects that they happen to have on hand. But if you look at it objectively throughout like maybe the last 10 years, Liefeld stuff, it still kind of looks the same, and it doesn't really look like he's grown to, uh, push past what he's doing, I should say. Um, in some ways, yeah, it could be considered as a stylistic choice. So I mean, there is that. Uh, and I get it. Some people are, still 90s nostalgic, even though it was 30 years ago, and they still love X Force. They still love, 90s era X Men, uh, or just any of that stuff from the early Image stuff. Which I actually did a quick deep dive of some of the stuff that came out there in that time period. Fantastic artwork. Not going to lie, there was some fantastic artwork, and there was some stuff that they obviously hadn't done before, and so that's there. But the plot for a lot of the stories or plot holes for days. I think out of all of them, Stormwatch was the one that actually had a bit of a consistent storyline with Wildcats underneath that. Um, but yeah, it wasn't until they actually realized, oh wait, it's actually hard being both writer and artist, that they actually started to focus on the writing and also hiring other writers to do stuff. So that's when you started to see a shift from the think about 1995, 96 up to about uh, right at 2000 with some of the stuff, because that's when they started hiring in like guys like Alan Moore, uh, to make sense of a lot of stuff going on. Anyways, uh, but yeah, so uh, that's actually something that I have heard a lot when it comes to um, people, especially kids, when they're trying to grab hold as far as just what it is to draw, and like they're having a hard time, I guess, the symmetry of a face, or trying to do hands together and feet as well. Good question. Do I have any conventions coming up? Um, let's see. Uh, so even though I do not have a table, I will be at Baltimore Comic Con, and that is I think it's September 8th. Uh, and I'm only going to be there on the Friday and the Sunday. Part of it is just being around several of my friends who are going to be there and have tables. The only reason I'm not doing a table this year is just because I was focusing on other projects and stuff I've got on this year. Um, but I am definitely going to be doing a table there next year again. Um, but yeah, going to be there on day 1 and day 3, seeing friends and also doing some networking, and hopefully, if I get to catch any of my editor friends there as well, definitely will see them. Uh, Last I checked, I'm still going to be at the mini convention that's happening at Low Mill in Huntsville. I believe that's either going to be October or November. Supposedly, after talking with Tim at Izzy's, I think he's wanting to do something around Halloween time, so I'll probably be there for that event. But that's really all that I've got going on. I'm not doing the Sand Mountain thing this year, even though it is the first year for it. I'm going to maybe wait until next year because I want to see how this year does first before I dip my toes into that. Um, and I know that I've got some friends that are going to be at Memphis, and unfortunately won't be there for that. So I will be there in spirit, so to speak. I think that will work with that. But yeah, going back a couple minutes, I do this to myself every time. Um, I totally get where kids who are self-teaching themselves how to do stuff, and I like getting those questions from them and pointing out stuff. And I do tell them 1 or 2 books that they should definitely have in their arsenal. I know a lot of people will just flat out say, get How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. It is a good uh, introduction book, but I think my only, because I'm looking at it from a very literal aspect, how comics are done, either with Marvel or the big or DC. It's not the same uh, as it was, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, so on. So when you look at the artwork of How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, it's very much in the Silver Age stuff, because I mean they do have, Robita and Bashima. There's nothing wrong with those guys. Absolutely love Bashima. Um, but if you're looking at it from a very literal aspect, there are a lot of differences. So I typically, tell them you're all right. It is about the practice for sure. You got to put in the time. Um, but I always recommend Making Comics by Scott McCloud, because he goes into depth in terms of, obviously how to make comics, but he talks about a lot of stuff that you don't get in How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And he uses a lot of examples and does not shy away from using comics that are, either European or Japanese to prove his point, and that there's always going to be more than one way uh, to draw a comic. I'm going to angle that just a bit so it's not a point. But yeah, Making Comics by Scott McCloud. That's always my number one pick. And my number two pick is actually the comic book guide to inking, which I believe it's on its either its second or third edition now, in which you can pick either one of those books up from Amazon or you can order it through like Books a Million, Barnes and Noble if you wanted to. But the reason I mentioned that one as well is that, and this is something I had to learn, was that I've always wondered why whenever I'm doing pencils, it looks good, and when I get to the inking, it sucks. And I figured out that it's because I'm not thinking like an inker. Whenever I'm getting to doing stuff to inking, I mean, I can throw, you know, ink which way and every way, but there's more to it, and it's basically a bit of a, um, you know, it's kind of like a language almost when it comes to inking, because if you're going to be doing interiors, which I believe every person should aspire to do interiors, because honestly, if you go to any editor for portfolio review, they're going to be more excited if you do interiors than they are if you're doing covers. Um, Unless you just happen to have that wow factor on the covers, and then they're like, okay, we'll shoot some work your way. But um, when you're looking at doing interiors and you're working with a team and there's someone else that's the inker, then you've got to make sure that it's not really so much the fact of your pencils being tight, but that your pencils are kind of like a handwriting all on its own because the inker has to interpret it. So, there are uh, lots of different ways, and of course, they interview a lot of different inkers, and they even show some stuff from inkers from decades past, as far as examples are concerned. And absolutely love that they show stuff like uh, some of the early stuff, when John Mishima was inking his stuff, and even Kirby and Romita going into Alex Toth, and then of course they start getting to like the 80s and 90s. So like when Adam Hughes was starting off in DC, the way that he was approaching inking was completely different compared to say Klaus Janson, and how he would do stuff in that same time period. And then it would get into like the 90s, which everyone was aping off of Scott Williams and what he was doing. So um, it's definitely interesting to see, that progression and, all the different techniques and stuff like that as far as inking is concerned. So I think it's kind of awesome that, and I highly recommend that book. I think it has gone up in price, unfortunately, but it's definitely the second necessity book. And then if I had to admit to like a third book that people should pick up, definitely, oh gosh, what's the title? I know it has noir in the title of it, but I think it's like How to Do Noir Comics. I believe that's how it's done. But anyways, the entire thing obviously pretty kind of paced, simple, but it looks at it from a very cinematography type lens. Um, and I definitely feel like that's something that is missing when it comes to a lot of Western comics, is that not allowing the time to breathe in an issue. So everything is just go, go, go within 20 to 24 pages instead of just, every 2 weeks, instead of just letting things breathe for like a month. I would rather spend $5 on a 40 to 60 page issue comic uh, a month than having to blow, 3.99, 4.99 every week or every other week on a comic. So you lose all the character of the line when you ink versus pencil. Um, it does depend on the situation. Because if you look at, I'm going to use Rachel Dodson and Sandra Hope as my examples. Uh, and it's not to say that Terry Dodson and Andy Cooper don't know how to draw. They do. They definitely do. And there's a lot of character in their stuff, but they are able to understand uh, what you know. Rachel definitely understands Terry's language when it comes to uh, his lines and stuff like that. She does definitely insinuate what Terry does. Sandra Hope is able to interpret and insinuate what Andy Cooper puts out. You could definitely see that in his work as well. Yeah, the timeline definitely is definitely insane. Which, I mean, at the same time, when you got you know a beast of a penciler like Brian Hitch putting out some of the stuff that he has put out, it is nuts. Which definitely is a bit of a madman. But I do like that he and I are both using the same type of comic board, which, if anyone here just happens to be wanting to know exactly what we're using, this is Eon HD Smooth. I believe it's a vellum art board. So it definitely is a bit of a smooth piece of paper, but there is a little bit of a tooth to it, not by much. Um, Pretty similar to Strathmore 300. If you happen to be using that. And I want to say that Brett Booth uses, I know he uses Eon, but he uses a different paper type for what he does. So that is there. All right. I'm going to go back to my reference, which is the Jean Paul Leon cover to Batman Catwoman Special 1. And one of the reasons I like this cover is because Leon has a very Alex Toth type, I guess, influence. And I've always kind of enjoyed that sort of thing. So that's if I use a ruler. But for people who have never, I guess, looked into Alex Toth, and more likely you have seen this stuff and just didn't even realize, he did the character designs for the Hanna-Barbera Space Ghosts. He did the Zorro comics back in the, oh gosh, 60s or 70s, so around there. I know that he's done he did stuff for DC Comics. I know he did a Black Canary um, comic, but I don't think it was necessarily Black Canary per se. I think it was like maybe a Justice League story or a Green Arrow story. I don't remember off the top of my head. Um, but Toth is definitely one of those guys that you will always learn something when you look at his stuff. To which me and Reed Beeman will always will say, you know, something has a Tothism because of just how it looks. You know, we've said that about um, you know, some of the stuff that either like, you know, Mike Mignola would be another perfect example of, you know, that sort of thing. Obviously, Jean Paul Leon. Sometimes you can see some of that in either James Herron or Dan Warren Johnson stuff. It's not a lot, but you do see it in there. But definitely with Mike Mignola and God, who was that artist that he hired for some BPRD stuff? Christopher Golden. Yeah, Christopher Golden. Uh, which I believe he also did Lord Baltimore, um, which that was a fantastic run stuff. Right. Futzing around with this if I don't get to where I need to do. All right, so continue on with using this thing a little bit as reference. There is a interesting section of light source going on. So there's like a little bit of a light right here, and then there's also a little bit, well, two separate parts here and there. So one higher. Let's see. I do apologize for the drawing cam shaking. It's attached to my board. Let's actually drop that down just a bit. So if I wasn't using this cover as my, you know, tribute reference sort of thing, um, something that I've basically kind of had to get back into the groove of is drawing environments and kind of put on the spot just a little bit from uh, Mark Nelson, who, if you don't know who he is, he did the first several issues of the Alien comic for Dark Horse. And whenever he does any sort of character designs and stuff like that, or something regarding a print, he will do the environment first. Because if you can get the perspective of the background first, then the characters living within it, it fits. It's there. I'm going to X this part out so I know that they are areas of spot blacks. And okay, so this little type section right here. And we're actually going to that curve just a bit. And then get this. That's right there. And got this part right here. It's right there. Okay, so that's marked as far as the spot blacks are concerned. Probably add in a bit of a texture on the pipe going this way just a bit. Same with right here. Get to that later. And then we're going to move over to Eel Snake. And let's see. I want to black this part out just a bit. See here. That's there. And then the white on the shoulder. Get some bicep. There's going to be a little bit of shadow to create some contrast. Bit of a shadow right here because he's gripping something. In this case, the pipe. Have be blacked out. So it's really only the fingers that you really see. So that is there. And then down towards here. It's been blacked out. And then show a little bit at the lip of pouch. Let's get blacked out just a little bit. there. Yeah, it's been blacked out. So in some ways, I am trying to keep Snake in a little bit of darkness. He is a ninja, so makes sense, right? But I'm also trying to put in these areas of light to accentuate certain stuff. And I'll say this has definitely been an interesting thing to do drawing wise as of late, as I've been working on these panels, which are very nuanced and very detailed. And it's been nice to kind of feel like I've been shutting my brain off just a little bit. But I've also learned so much from what I've done with those panels that it's kind of hard for me to turn that off. It's there. And then, all right. So we basically have snake blocked out. So get to throw the inks on a bit later. I want to focus on the other part of the background, which right here is going to be the Cobra flag in the background, and then I want to put a bunch of the goons underneath here. And get the T-square real quick. That down there. Let's see. All right, this is probably the hardest part of doing this entire thing, which is the Cobra emblem. Thankfully, I pulled up some stuff regarding it. Yeah. Thank you for starting by, and thank you very much. Uh, just to let you know, this will be posted, on my Facebook page, also on the Haven Comics Facebook page, and also on YouTube as well, on the Haven Comics YouTube. So, if you happen to want to figure out how the rest of this continues ongoing, you can catch all of that starting basically at the end of all this. Justin, I hope you have a good night as well. Like I said earlier, you'll be able to catch all the rest of this after uh, the upload is complete. But for those of you who are still watching, I want to continue on. All right, so Cobra emblem. Wondering if I should get stencil time. Let's see here. Something that's a bit I don't think I have on me. And you know what? That's fine. We're going to wing it. All right. Okay, so head of snake is going to be about right here. So any of you who just happen to still be watching this, um, I hope you guys have read Void Rivals #1, which is going to launch this whole thing regarding the shared Energon universe between Void Rivals, G.I. Joe, and Transformers. And I literally just heard car backfire in the background. No idea if that went through to the microphone or not. It's there. Drop this down. To birthdays. Starting to sound like fireworks. All right. Which is really odd considering the fact that, it's almost middle of July. Now, I know that with the insignia that there's like a lot of the little slats. Not going to do as many. Right, so that is there. And let's go back to main reference. Let's see here. Mm, the line is square. I can't see it from this angle. Okay, looks square. All right. So we've got, looking off from this reference, the homage, got a little bit of an angle going this way with the walkway. So I'm going to do approximately about the same thing. Let's see what that is off. Grabbing the trusty T-square yet again. Let's see that's right there. So let's see, we've got since I'm just gonna wing this just a bit, an entrance, well, exit. Pull up my Cobra Goons references. Let's make split awkward just a bit. It's going to work. I'm going to change the angle on this just a bit. Split the difference. I should have done this earlier. Didn't think about that. That's what I get from winging it. Best part about drawing scenes like this is that you can basically get away with so much. Especially when you're dealing, something like, I don't know, Spider-Man just kind of like dangling off the ceiling or something like that. And he's like, I don't know, 100 feet away from everyone else. You could basically just draw people looking like, weird stick figures. It makes sense and it works. He's there. The guy here. Pretty sure first thing I want to do tomorrow is watch the G.I. Joe movie again, just for old times. Weird part is that it's not on anywhere um like for free streaming. I mean, you basically have to rent it off of Prime. But I know for a fact on Tubi, you've got I know you've got I think it's like a 5 or 6 part episode miniseries, and then of course the Real American Hero thing is on there as well, which is really awesome. I mean, because it's not all the episodes for the original animation, but yet you've got all 4 seasons of uh, the Generation One Transformers on Tubi. So I'm not sure if it was just like a weird licensing thing or what. So, and then I get the Vipers. Out of all of the Cobra Guard types, I personally prefer the Crimson Vipers. I just always, I don't know, there's something about the concept of a Crimson Guard. This goes back as far as Return of the Jedi. Just always kind of enjoyed that look. And I just realized, I think this is the first time I've ever drawn any Cobra soldiers whatsoever. So it's really becoming a night of first things, just having to do, which I am totally fine with. A person talking about how this is like first things I've really drawn, making it super tedious. This guy kind of fading in the background. Oh, grab me to it. Sure. All right. So now that that is there, and I have just realized that we have really gone into a pretty lengthy thing regarding all this. Hey, Bill, what's up? Should consider drawing sword. um, well, Nick, uh, there's definitely some things that you should probably reconsider when it comes to Silver Surfer. Uh, sorry, guys, that's an inside joke. Um, thank you, Bill. Thank you. So, uh, basically, the entirety of the pencils of this are done. Uh, I think just for the sake of time, because I do not want to make this go into the 3 hour mark. Um, I am basically going to say that as of right now, this is basically going to be the end of the video. I will be posting the finished black and white version of this. Um, so this will be posted. Josh, thank you so much for basically calling dibs and purchasing this off of me. I'm hoping that this will be in Haven. If not, obviously it'll probably be in Josh's personal collection. But yeah, that being said, uh, really happy with how this came out, especially with this being an homage. Which, before I forget, I'm going to write. I don't think you guys can really see this down here. Let me do that down here. Fix this. But yeah, for those of you who weren't here at the very beginning, this is a bit of a tribute piece to Jean-Paul Leon, which this is based off of the cover that he did for Batman Catwoman Special #1. Um, so, that being said, super thankful for every single one of you who happened to have liked, reacted, commented, talked to me. I know I was silent for a good bit of this because I was trying to make sure that it's getting all this done. So, with all that being said, we're going to go straight into our last bits of housekeepings. Haven Comics, look at 1871 Slaughter Road, Suite F in Masson, Alabama, which the store is always going to be open on Wednesday through Sunday, which you can get awesome G.I. Joe stuff like this particular Snake Eyes and Timberwolf, which this is the Classified Series set. So this is really awesome. Or if you're not really an action figure person, but you want a statue, we do happen to have a Snake Eyes and Timberwolf diorama piece, which I believe it is a Sideshow Gallery statue. So we definitely have that as well. And it does have a bit of a weight to it. So be careful whenever you're picking that up. Please remember to like and subscribe, whatever you happen to do. We just want to let you know we do see it. We do thank you for it. Every like, subscribe, share, comments, whatever, it helps push videos such as this a bit forward through the algorithm so that other people can find out what it is that we are doing and put that out there. So if you want to know where you can find me on social media, you can like and follow me through my link tree, which will basically list everything so far as where I am on social media. Or you can just type in the username at tpriceartworks. I'm basically on every social media site, with the exception of Blue Sky. I haven't gotten an invite for that, but I am on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, a slightly defunct Tumblr, Mastodon, Hive, and now Threads, which is technically the Twitter version of Instagram. And also, I have a Patreon as well. So, that being said, thank you guys so much. I will post the final scanned ink version of this, and it will be on my social media site at least within the next couple of days. I've got other work that comes first, but scanned version of this will be up within the next couple of days this week. That being said, there will be another video trying to decide what we're going to be doing for next Sunday, but I will definitely be posting about that between Wednesday and Thursday. So that being said, thank you guys so much, and I wish you all a good night.